Hey, what's going on everyone? This is JoeYoursTruly back with another video, and today we're going to be doing the tier list for version 0.17. At the end of the day, this is only my opinion on the current meta of these heroes and Predecessor, but I try my best to be as unbiased and informative that I can be. So generally when I do this tier list, I try to make them more as a solo queue, like diamond tier-ish kind of tier list, with some consideration from like the comp scene as well about what picks are really popular picks or bans over there. And so as a quick rundown on these tiers right here, I have S, A, B, C, and S to C. S for top tier heroes, A for strong picks overall, B for the average performer, C for matchup dependent or situational heroes. And the one thing that I do for these particular tier lists is this one ranking called S to C, where you better be a one trick, because we have some heroes in this meta that are just too hard to nail down how strong they feel, because their performances are like highly varied depending on who's piloting them. So until we get kind of like a more efficient rank mode come out and we have these more clear divisions of like ranks, this is kind of like the best approach I have for the current way a meta is happening here in solo queue. But without further ado, let's kind of jump straight into it. And usually I start off on the newest hero, which is Grim.exe. However, before I rank him, I need to kind of give a little bit more, I guess, context before I do that, because the thing about Grim.exe that I've been noticing is that it's very kind of 50-50 on how the community feels on the strength. And I've definitely been taking my notes and talking to other people as well. So before I rank Grim, I'm going to go ahead and rank two other ADCs that I think we're going to paint a clear picture of why I'm going to rate Grim as he is on my tier list. So the first off, we're going to first rank Sparrow, and Sparrow is going to go into the matchup dependent or situational category. And the big reason for that is that like, she has received some buzz, and ever since then she has been gaining a lot more traction and popularity. However, she still feel like she's a very situational ADC. She has a lot of potential. She has the highest DPS potential in the game, but what ends up happening most of the time when you play Sparrow is just how easy it is for you to just die at the start of a team fight without you doing much, because she's someone that's super reliant on not only having good matchups on the enemy team, which is very few to say the least, but also like having great teammates. Like she's the embodiment of protect the president, which if you do not protect the president, the whole entire team would just collapse, right? So she kind of opens up some for really almost kind of volatile team comps. Well, when someone picks a Sparrow, you're almost forcing people to play around her 24/7, because if she can't do her DPS in team fights, you just cannot win any team fight whatsoever. Because like sure, if you go buddy up with a duo and like that person plays like phase for example, you probably have the greatest time because you have a dedicated support that's always watching you back and really keeping you safe. But in the more solo queue environment, it's 50-50 if you're actually gonna get like teammates that are gonna be like really looking out for you. Even if you go into like masters, I see some master players just totally ignore the Sparrow, and then people wondering why they're losing team fights, right? So although I think she has a lot of potential for like where she's at right now, I feel like she's just really held back due to a very like vulnerable kit. Like it's just the further fact too that in the competitive scene, she's really not picked at all too. Like people recognize even the comp scene that she has a lot of potential, but she's just too dang risky to play her when there's other safer options to play with that can kind of get close to where she can do it anyway. So she's always going to be more the matchup dependent or situational right here. So for the second ADC we're going to talk about Wraith, and he's the prime example of you better be a one trick, because time and time again, ever since I've been rating Wraith, I've always been putting him in the SSC category, which by the way, again, like this is the category where you don't want to always think of this as like, oh, Wraith is worse than Sparrow. No, like I think Wraith has a lot of potential to be much better than Sparrow most of the cases. Like if I were to say like at the safest bet, like he can easily be an A pick, and some people even put him at S pick. The issue with that though is how many people can actually play him, because you look at the win rate on meta.c for the last few months and he is very abysmally low, just as more context, because like the vast majority of people in this game, I had to say to you guys cannot play Wraith to save your life. Like Wraith is just that kind of character that is just so difficult to get into. Even for me, like I can normally pick up any character and play them fine for the most part, but even when I play Wraith, I'm like, okay, if I want to actually get good with this guy, I actually have to put in 20 plus games. Like he's that very make or break kind of character. So I guess you can say that roughly 80% of the player base can't really utilize him to his best performance, because you're not really able to take full advantage of his kit and land all your ability combos. He's easily dropped down to B, and then when you start to have a really rough day in the game you're playing him, he can easily go down even lower, right? He's just too volatile, because like I really wanted to say he's super strong in the right hands, but he's also very weak in the wrong hands for the like experienced kind of players. So he's like just a prime example of what I mean by you better be one trick. Like he's just too hard to justify putting in the solid tier list, because he can easily go up and down depending on who's piloting him. Now with all that away, so let's kind of talk about going back to Grim now, how I'm going to place him, because I guess the big thing about Grim that I feel like is happening is it's very much like the Sirius situation, where when Sirius was first released back in like when he was first arriving Predecessor, a lot of people were also kind of very split on him. A lot of people kind of putting him like more like a B or even C. Like they're kind of like, Sirius is cool, but he's feels very underwhelming to play, right? That's like within the first few weeks of his release, and the thing is, like the other side of that spectrum is me and a couple other people like, wait, like you guys are like weird, like this guy is actually so annoying, really strong, right? But the part of the reason why the community was so split on Sirius back then is because he requires a lot more time to settle into the meta, because not only his builds needed time to figuring out what's the best way to build him out, but also for the fact that his whole playstyle is just something that's totally new in Predecessor, and it's not like a straightforward W keyboard like Grux or Kwang. Like he requires a lot more meticulous play style when playing him. So after a month has passed, all of a sudden people are like saying, oh, he's like SS tier, like he's just really annoying to deal with. Like he's like, he can't lose any matchup. But that's the thing, like nothing has changed within the first month Sirius has released, but then there's a whole shift where people realize that Sirius is actually a really strong character overall. So I feel like in a sense, something similar is also happening with Grim at the moment. Now, I don't think he's nearly as like strong as Sirius at the moment. I think Grim has a lot more flaws than Sirius in my opinion. But I feel like with the whole Grim situation, I think he needs a lot more time to bake in the oven of where he's at in the meta. But for right now, how I'm going to place him is I'm going to actually place him in the B category, average performers, because let's first talk about like some of the really great strengths he brings to the table. First off, he's the first ever magical ADC carry, and that means that he opens up for a lot more unique team concepts that we never before have seen, because a lot of times you could get like a, let's say, Grux offlane, a Chimera jungle, and then your traditional like counters mid. All of a sudden, like going like an ADC physical base makes it really easy to show up like 3 of your main damage sources as countering your team right there. However, since Grim is the first ever magical damage dealer, he really opens up the team comps a lot more to where like you can run a lot more different picks than other wolves, or rather you can have a lot more balanced team comp in certain damage types. So when someone is having to make the choice between building armor against the Chimera or building magical armor against you as Grim, they are losing something out 50-50 out of times, right? And so I think that alone makes him a very unique ADC that brings a lot of like strengths in this ADC role. Grim is also a character that has a lot of strong utility, probably one of the best in the ADC roster. Like the whole like Q and power, E and power slows on the basic attacks, he can turn on and off at will. The Q knockback is really strong as well. His spell shield, I know some people are having some issues with it, but that spell shield is just so dang annoying to deal with, because you go against like Ritual Deco, who usually can just run you down as soon as they learn that stun or hood. You can immediately negate that with your spell shield. Like all you have to do is pay attention, press right click, and then you can totally block that spell. And I don't think people realize how strong that is to put on the ADC role, where normally ADCs are countered by crowd control, and Grim can say nope to any of that. Okay, so now let's talk about one other thing I guess before we talk about is that Grim also has the potential for one of the most diverse item builds in the game, because since he has full access to both magical and physical builds. So of course, one of the more popular builds on him at the moment is his like traditional attack speed, crit, physical on his stuff, but he also has a lot of awesome potential with his magical base build that I've been a big fan of recently. Some people are kind of still on the 50-50 on it, but nothing beats like one-shotting people late game with the ultimate and G and his Q ability, with just going full magical. Like, I think there's a lot of potential right there, but either way, he has some really great flexibility in the items he can build that no other ADCs can do. Okay, so let's talk about like what's the main downsides of him. First off, Grim is a walking fridge. Like that's a whole like meme joke about him even back in OG Paragon, where Grim has always been a very large ADC, and a large ADC means that basic attacks are easier to land on them, skill shots are easier to land on him. So in general, people will have an easier time hitting you than you hitting them back, right? That's like the big weakness drawback that I think people don't realize, that it can really make you feel like you're a lot squishier, because there are a lot of moments where you feel like you're dying really fast, but part of the reason is because people are just not missing their shots on you nearly as much. There's also the fact that he sort of is kind of the highest skill ceiling character. Like, I really don't think he's like as high of a skill ceiling as the Wraith, but he's definitely more up there for, I guess, in more lines of Xeris as a comparison. But I guess the big thing I want to just kind of clear up about how I feel about Grim is that, like, I do really think that he's not nearly as bad as people make that be. He has some glaring weaknesses that we just talked about. But if I were to blind pick an ADC between Sparrow and Grim, I will pick Grim almost every single time, because I feel comfortable knowing that even if I go against a really deadly Richter support, I have a way to self-peel or negate that completely. I have ways to kind of play out team fights. I have to slow on my basic attacks. I have to lock on ultimate confirmation on targets. Like, I feel like playing Grim, you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more options than like a Sparrow will ever be. Like, even though Sparrow could have some higher DPS moments than the Grim, I think Grim is just, in my book, a much safer ADC to play in lane, especially when you're blind picking him right there. So for now, I'm gonna leave him at B. I don't think compared to other ADCs he's nearly as strong. I think he has some weaknesses holding him back, but at the same time, again, I don't think he's nearly as risky and volatile to play like the Sparrow does. So that's my whole like split on him. Let's talk about some other heroes. Before we go to like the whole like rest of the heroes list, I want to give some quick notable like mentions on some heroes right here, because for example, I think the top two mages in the meta right now is actually going to be the Argus and Belica. And might as well just put in Gideon where I feel where he's at right now. Because I think for the longest time, I've been putting Gideon as S2 because he's always been like the safest mage to kind of play around with in lane. Like, he still very is the safest mage. Like, if you want to pick a mage that you just never die mid lane with, you honestly pick Gideon. However, he has a lot more competition now in terms of like what he can provide to the table, and that is with the Argus and Belica. Argus has received some, a couple of nerfs time and time again, but he's still very much a deadly mage, especially mid to late game, because he has a very powerful utility kit. Like, his Q, stun, and E are just alone super deadly, and they're like honestly not too bad to land. Like, some hero abilities can be sometimes challenging to land, but honestly they're not too hard to land consistently well on Argus. And I mean, he just kind of has it all. Great wave clear, great range, great at the close range. Like, he kind of does everything well. Not nearly as like abusable, I would say, as he used to be, and that's why I'm actually putting Belica up here, because again, Belica is still very much a very deadly mage in the mid lane. She has that 100-0 burst combo that she can just lay on to any squishy mid to late game. Because that's the thing that is about, I think, what's really separating out Gideon from S tier anymore. It's just, I feel like in terms of raw like damage utility, Argus and Belica just beat out Gideon by a mile. Like, the stuns they both provide are way more valuable than the AoE ultimate he can do in teamfight, which by the way is always a risk to ult in the middle of the teamfight where people can shoot at you and you just channeling your ability. I don't think there's anything wrong with going Gideon personally, but I really feel like what Argus and Belica can do can be more consistent and be more deadly in those teamfights, especially with his stuns and all that really good stuff. Alright, I think that's about it actually what I want to do. Oh, there's one more hero I want to talk about that I want to try to like put up here in the S2 finally, and that is gonna be Kwang. Because like you guys know me, I'm a Kwang enjoyer. Kwang is one of my favorite heroes of all time in Predecessor. So this is the one hero I always try to be careful about, try not to be biased on my ranking of him. And I think for the last like few tier lists, I always put him in the A2 rank right here. But I'm finally gonna push the go button and put him in S tier because he has received nerfs time and time again, much like the August, but he's still very much a very strong offlane, probably one of the best offlane tanks in this game right here. Because even in the competitive scene, he's almost like a pick or ban. Like, he's just a hero that's just always a huge consideration in the competitive scene. Like, he just kind of does it all much like the August Belica. He has great damage on his own. He has great dive potential. His team fighting is just excellent. And then most of his matchups in the offlane is also very good for him as well. Like, I seriously think like where he's at right now, he's just one of the best tank offlaners. And I want to emphasize the tank part. Because Kwang is a hero that you look at and he's more like a bruiser on paper, much like a Grux or a Grayson, but he's very much best play as full tank. And I think that's the thing that finally caught on, is now everyone realized that, hey, the best way to play Kwang is literally build him full tank, and then that's where like he subterfuge like at best. Because that's also another thing too, is that although he's not like as straightforward as some of the keywords and Predator, so whenever you have a character that is best built as a full tank, meaning that they're very hard to kill and they have a lot of room to mistakes, they're always generally higher in the tier list rankings right here. And that's why I'm putting them S tier. Everyone's building him full tank at this point. That's his best playstyle. Very hard to punch a Kwang that's building full tank, and he has great movability. He's hard to like really solidly lock down when he has his Q tether, and he just really does it all. And I feel like he just definitely deserves this S tier ranking finally right here. But yeah, that's about it about some of the notable mentions I want to kind of highlight in this tier list. So now we can go ahead and finish off the rest of this tier list right here. First up, at Callan, she's gonna go on B2. I think she's definitely still a solid hero all around. She's not necessarily like the strongest hero in like the mid lane or in the jungle, but she's definitely has her good matchups, and she's definitely someone that is starting to become a lot more reliable to play even in some of the more bad matchups. Because even in off lane, like, she started to become a lot more popular over there again, and partially that's due to the build that I just showcased it recently of just going like the overgrowth, a circle, world breaker scaling build. And again, like whenever you have a build that's very much more on the tankier side, like the whole Kwang situation, that means that generally the hero is just easier to pick up and play, harder to punish, and now in turn will make the hero more favorable in the tier list. So I seriously think that Kwang is just getting more popular by the day, especially now that more and more people are picking up on the whole like world breaker, overgrowth kind of scaling build on her, that makes her just have so much raw stats, but still actually pretty hard to kill with all the extra HP and lifesteal that she's bringing to the table. Next up is going to be Crunch. I also think he's a good all-around hero, not necessarily a strong pick because he definitely has a lot of matchups he does not like he's just someone that hates like crowd control, and unfortunately you can always see in these top 3 spots that they all have strong crowd control. Crunch hates playing against these heroes in particular in team fights, so he's always held back due to the fact that he's always super easily countable by silences and crowd control. And so as long as those kind of heroes are top of the tier list, he's always going to be more down here as a result. Next up is going to be Decker, and she's going to be going into the after performers. I've been ranking her at A for the longest time, but if you've been watching the competitive scene especially, Decker has actually been a support that has a pretty low win rate in competitive scene. And I think the big thing about Decker is that she's not necessarily bad. Like, she is the jack of all trades as a support, good as having the lockdown, peeling for your teammates, all that great stuff, but at the same time though, that's just all she really is. She's just a jack of all trades, master of none. And so when she doesn't have a particular like strengths that really makes her like stand out in the meta. I think that's where she started to kind of fall behind, especially like even this is actually a large part of it too, because of Argus support just being extremely popular too. Like he just provides pretty much the same stuff that Deku does, but a lot more damage behind this. So he's pretty much like a Deku version of being a lot more of a carry support, being able to dish out damage and have more solo kill impact than she would ever be. So I just don't think there's anything wrong with going to Deku, but I feel like she's getting overshadowed a lot by other supports that have a lot more specialized skills that she can does not meet as well, unfortunately. Next up is going to be Drongo, and he's going to be an S tier hero. A lot of part of this is because he's an extremely popular ADC in the competitive scene at the moment, and he's also very great in the solo kill environment. He kind of has it all, so to speak, because that silence grenade he has on his Q alone can actually shut off some people. Like, you normally when you play ADC, you think of ADCs that you generally pick for what you want to play rather than trying to counter pick against other people. Drongo is one of those few, probably one of the only ADCs you can actually pick him to counter other people. Like, for the fact that his Q silence is a thing, he counters like the crunch super well, he counters the keyword super well. Like, anyone that really reliant on the abilities, he can counter them with his silence grenade super damn well. And on top of all that, he just has great burst damage. He's very good at taking down towers with his E. He has really great self peel, great burst damage. He just does it all, so to speak. So he's just that best all-in-one. He's kind of like the jack of all trades and master of almost everything you want in the ADC, if that makes sense. Like, very few weaknesses and bad matchups he ever gets into. So in terms of the competitive scene and both solo queue stuff, he's definitely one of the top ADCs at the moment to pick up and play. Next up is going to be Fame Mao, and he's going to be A pick overall. I've been kind of weighing him as the B pick for the longest time, but I'm going to be pushing him to the A rank because he just started to get a little bit more popular, especially in the off lane, because he's just extremely strong with the Omen interaction. For those who do not know it, essentially Fame Mao can proc the Omen, and what that means is that he goes in, uses all his abilities, basic attack, he reduces the cooldowns of all his abilities, gets the E again super quick again, and that E damage will also reduce the cooldowns on B, so he can dash in, dash out very quick, and his on B is one of the best mobilities in this entire game right here. Like, that's like the big reason why Fame Mao has always been super strong, because they always have the best escape and engage tool in the game. With all that said, I think Fame Mao is not like the best jungler. I think his better role right now is offlane. Well, most of his matchups is actually pretty good. There's a little bit of skill behind it because you have to take like short trades and know your limits. But at the same time, he's very much like a Sevox, well, it's just you don't bother ganking him, because as long as he has on B, he can pretty much escape any like gank situation. And when you have someone that is super safe in lane and have a lot of pressure in lane as a result, like, that's just someone that's just something that's very worthy for a higher placement in the tier list. Because even if he gets into a situation where he has a bad matchup and he can't really like pressure the opponent well in the early game, Fame Mao is like definitely one of the best split pushers in the game, because for the same reason that he's very elusive, it's very hard to punish with Fame Mao split pushing. He's very fast, he can make quick work on towers on the map, and not only that, his wave kill is disgusting, his damage to towers is disgusting. You can literally play Fame Mao not necessarily as someone that can burst down squishy target mid to late game, which by the way, his burst damage mid to late game is very disgusting. He also have the option just to keep constantly split pushing, keep having people chase him, and him just keep running away. Like, I think Fame Mao is just a hero that has a lot of options on what he can do to adapt on the fly, and I feel like compared to his other heroes that doesn't have as much options as he does, I feel like he definitely deserves a spot in the A tier for now. Next up is going to be Gadget, and I'm going to be putting her on the B tier right here. Kind of like just good in the mid lane. She has great pokes. She has like a very good ultimate for objective control and punishment, but I think compared to other mages like the Gideon, I don't think she offers nearly as much potent strength or potential as the other mages. Next up, it's going to be Greystone, and I'm actually going to knock him down to B2. Part of the reason is because Greystone hasn't been as popular as of late. I feel like a lot more offlaners, like Kwang especially, is becoming a lot more popular in this role, and it's like his jungle is actually kind of sleeper good, like it's actually not bad, but at the same time, he doesn't have like as much like consistent options as other junglers right now. Like it's gonna be super hard to kill with his ultimate, so it makes him a really great team fighter in the offlane and jungler world especially. But at the same time though, like I think in the jungler world he's just kind of overshadowed by some of the more popular jungler picks like the Rampage for example that we get into. And also in the offlane, he has some pretty challenging matchups, I would say. Like he's kind of like a hero that actually when playing against sudden aggressive picks like the Fame and Grux, he can hold his own really well, but that requires someone to really know the limits of Greystone well and not be afraid to trade back, because I think the frustrating part about playing Greystone in the offlane especially is he doesn't have a good reliable way to quick trade with someone. Usually the best way to kind of win your lane slowly but surely is the usual quick ability to do damage and back off. Fame does that, Kwang does that, even Grux does that. They all have ways to do a quick damage rate and back off immediately, but Greystone is all about committing to long trades, and when he's in a situation where he can't commit to a long trade, it can be really hard to pressure your offlaner specifically well. So that's why I'm putting him B, because I feel like he has some matchups where it can be pretty tough, even though he could win it in the long run. Next up, it's going to be Grux, and he's still a pick overall. He's definitely someone that's pretty easy the more counter, the more experience you play against him, and in higher elos especially. He's almost to the point that he's sort of like a volatile pick, but I only see that really in the higher elos. Like when you're talking about even like diamond kind of elo, he's still someone that I see a lot of people struggling to deal with. He's just someone that always have immense pressure in lane because of his all-in potential and his crowd control with his E knockup and his Q pull. He shows he has some matchups where he actually does not like being in, like against like a Steel, for example, anyone with a lot of crowd control or a lot of looseness like the Shinbi. But at the same time though, he's just someone that scales pretty well for the most part mid to late game. If you get to full build, you become someone that can be really hard to shut down unless you bring the entire team around due to your army fam and high sustained damage potential. So I think overall he's an A pick. He also has some great matchups in shutting down some of the more popular S and A rank tier heroes. So I think he's definitely a solid A pick for now. Next up is going to be Howitzer, and Howitzer is going to be a B pick, much like the Gadget. Like nothing wrong with going him mid. I just think that other mages have a lot more utility or impact in team fights. Howitzer is all about that poke, but it's a very much more single target focus, and some of the more popular mages are always all about the big AoE stuff. Or in the sense that like even against like the single target mages like Belica just does more reliable high single target damage than Howitzer would ever do. So because of all that, he's just kind of like a B pick, just getting overshadowed by these kind of S to A picks right here. Next up, it's going to be Iggy and Scorch, and they are going to be going into the C pick. He has been getting more love recently, but I still think he's more like a matchup dependent situational. He's someone that is very great at taking like objectives, but so does like other mages like Argus at the moment. So it's kind of hard because I think Iggy's not like a hard character to really play. He's very consistent in what he does damage wise and really good at defending objectives or just denying areas around team fights. But at the same time though, he doesn't have a super reliable kill confirmation kit, and mid lane is all about kind of snowballing and having huge impact in the side lanes. And I think when it comes to ganking side lanes and having ways to kill kills for yourself, I think Iggy is pretty weak on that front, and because of that, I feel like he's going to be more down here in the C matchup dependent situational. Well, if you need a mage that is all about securing kills or initiating team fights, Iggy just is very poor for that. He's reliant on his team almost to kind of do the engaging for him, and he's kind of trailing behind supporting what he can do. Next up, it's going to be Kalai, and she's going to be going into the one-trick category. She's someone that like actually is really sleeper strong, especially in high elos. Like there's some junglers like 6 and North that actually play the Kalai jungle super well, to the point that teams will actually ban Kalai because a Kalai like player that can just have so much pressure and damage in team fights just is enough to warrant a ban against that player. But that also means that for the more average Joe, she's not worth banning over. She's someone that's going to actually be quite easy to punish as soon as she does one small misstep for the most part. So I think for her, she's much like the race where there's so much skills expression with this hero. She has so much potential and what she can do, but you need to have a player that can not only play her super well, but also have a team comp that can enable her to do what she wants. So for now, she's going to be still in this one-trick category right here. Next up is going to be Chimera, and it's going to be still an S tier pick. Definitely one of the best and easiest carry jungle picks you can do in this meta right now. Just pick Chimera if you're new to the jungle role, or even if you're in the highest of elos. Chimera is still very much a reliable pick you can never go wrong with, because he has that great early game damage. He's very good in the mid to late game teamfights as well, especially if you build him more as a bruiser / kind of semi-tanky kind of fighter. His cleanse is also super dang good too, because he can negate some of the more powerful CCs like the Kwang tether with the pull, along as you time your cleanse well with his E. Kira's gonna go after performance. She's someone that I feel like is great pick for the most part. She's definitely much safer to play as ADC than a Sparrow because she has that dash. She's someone that has great single target damage and very daily moments AoE wise when she gets to ult people. However, like, she always kind of struggles because she has one of the worst wave clears in the game as an ADC, and that means that farming with her is much more difficult and slower. It's harder to like push out waves and pressure like towers more unreasonably fast. Like, I feel like she has so much limitations to that alone, and for the fact that sometimes it could be really hard for her to ult because of the jungle silence or any stuns. So I think she's someone that's really strong for the most part, but I think she's also easy to shut down or just out pressure her when it comes to pushing lanes. Mortgage is going to go to matchup dependent situational. Like, she's someone that's pretty easy to pick up and play. She has very easy, consistent damage, very high single target damage. But I feel like that still pales in comparison to what a Belica can do, where Belica can more reliably 100 someone in like 2-3 seconds, where Mortgage is a lot like slower on that front as a comparison. But also, Mortgage is kind of more immobile. She doesn't not really great at escaping really aggressive like divers. She has a lot more limited usage and like when it comes to objective control, where she actually has very low damage output when it comes to taking down the objective. So I feel like she has a lot of limitations and a lot of weaknesses, to the point that I don't think she's someone that you always want to pick up and play as a blind pick. And higher elos, definitely nothing wrong with picking her up as a newer kind of mid laner, but I think as you go higher up, you're gonna start to see more and more of those weaknesses of Morgus gets exploited by other like good players in this community. Next up is gonna be Murdoch. He's gonna be in the A pick. I think last time I rated Murdoch as the S tier pick. I think it's still very much a very great snowball and solo queue ADC, great self pure, global ultimate. Minds, you love to see it, but at the same time though, I feel like that's pales in comparison to Jungle at the moment, so I don't think he deserves to be in the same tier list as Jungle, but it's definitely a very solid A pick all around. Next up is going to be Mario, and I think she's still a kind of like a one-trick kind of hero situation. I think she's someone that is not as straightforward, easy to play as people realize. She's not someone that stands behind the ADC and just shield them all game. She's someone that very much you want to get about getting aggressive in lane with your poke and with your pressure with your enhanced basic attack. And more importantly, like, her global ultimate provides so much utility and potential what you can do with it when it comes to like you split pushing and then letting your whole team push mid without you, and then when a team fight actually breaks out, that's when you immediately ult and turn the team fight around. But I think she's just someone that I feel like is best expressed from like player to player rather than like general like how she feels. Like, I think she's someone that can feel really strong and impressive in the right hands, but someone that can feel very lackluster due to her kid not having like reliable CC for like the more B and C. So I think it's kind of too hard to place her where she's at because it really depends on the player. So I'm going to put her in the one-trick category for now. Next up is going to be Narbash, and he's still very much a strong pick all around. Nothing beats his AoE heal and mid to late game teamfights. He's the support that enables this death ball team cards where people just start ARAMing it, and then Narbash can support that playstyle super damn well. A little bit weaker early game compared to other supports, but his scaling, especially when it comes to healing, is very strong. Like, he's also someone that's just very easy to pick up in play, so I think in comparison to other supports down below, I think he's someone that provides a lot more consistent value that you just cannot go wrong with. Next up is going to be FaZe, and we're actually going to put her in B. I think I've been putting her in more matchup dependent situational for a while, but I think lately, I think people have learned to really utilize FaZe to its truest potential. Like, even in comp scene, she's starting to get picked up more and more often, and that's of course always been for the case that she's been super annoying to deal with for the fact that she can keep anyone alive extremely well. Like, she's kind of like the primary reason why Sparrow players can have the moments, because she can completely fix weaknesses of like certain heroes like Sparrow while also making them like go super hard with the steroid buff that she can provide. Especially now that Grim is starting to become a ADC in the meta, like a Grim and FaZe duo means you can never kill her, because Grim has a spell shield and FaZe always has to pull back. Like, she offers so much safety to the ADC that's just really obnoxious to deal with. And then in the right hands, she can really enable that one person to like go super hard. Because I think the big thing about FaZe is that she's always been kind of held back, and still is, by like good teammates. Because like, if you don't have a teammate that can actually carry the game and you can enable them, that's when FaZe can start to feel pretty bad. However, I noticed that matchmaking has been a lot more tighter in the elo, so when you're a diamond player queuing up for a game, that most of the time you are going to be getting into a full lobby of diamond players of similar skill level. That even goes to grandmasters as well. I get a lot of games nowadays where my lobbies are full of masters or grandmasters only, and so I'm playing some really top-notch sweaty lobbies, and that's where FaZe just feels like she can really excel even in those solo queue moments, because you know your ADC is going to be super well. There's like no excuses for not having a teammate that can actually kind of carry your team, and you can be just a huge enabler for that. Or even if you don't have like the best like ADC to deal with that, like if you're someone that's really good on FaZe, you can force someone to fix the mistakes and force someone to stay safe if you really want to. Like, I feel like FaZe actually is a pretty good pick. Do not want to sleep on her. I think she's starting to like get more and more popular as time goes on. Rampage, definitely an S tier. He's one of the best tank junglers in the entire game. Has so much like team fighting strength. So he's also great in the 1v1s due to his like ultimate. And if you build enough ability haste on him, you can just get a double insta Q walk during his ultimate. And he's also like really strong with certain items like Basilisk too. Like, some people will even build Basilisk first, not Fire Blossom first, as Rampage stronger and output the same damage or even higher while still having great clears. Like, I think Rampage is just a really popular tank pick at the moment that I think any team would love having Rampage on the team essentially at this point. Next up is going to be Revenant. He's actually going to go down to the matchup dependent situational. And that's actually kind of a surprise, I think, for some people. Maybe not for all, because I think Revenant has been someone that hasn't been getting a whole lot of love or attention recently. And I think more and more that reason is because I think he has got to the point where he's a little bit too volatile to play as an ADC. You look at all these ADCs like the Drongo and the Murdoch, and Revenant is just like hard to justify playing him compared to the more other safer alternate choices. Because sure, like once Revenant gets to mid to late game, he can start to kind of 2-3 tap people with his basic attacks, but at the same time, he's very vulnerable in the early game. Very much like the Sparrow, where he has no great way to peel for himself. The only time he can actually peel for himself is with the commitment of his ultimate, which kind of feels bad when you have these other ADCs that can peel for themselves, which is the basic ability for the most part. And even like in that kind of situation, there could be times where there might not even be a target for you to ult, and that could feel really bad that you want to ult, you want to get the 1v1, but when all the options are very lackluster, that's when it kind of feels pretty bad. But he does have some really great uses of his ultimate still, like nothing beats ulting someone, a jungler in the nether realm, and they cannot smite an objective. But even then, that's a little bit too situational, not as consistent as I would like to be. So I think he's someone that has a lot of potential like the Sparrow, but I think he's a little bit too volatile, risky to play, especially against some of the more popular crowd control kind of picks at the moment. So I think he's going to be a C pick for now, until he starts to feel a little bit better to play as a blind pick. Next up is going to be Victor. He's an A pick, very strong all around. He has great flexibility in support, jungle, and off lane. And he's definitely someone you can't go wrong with. There are some players good behind, especially when it comes to landing your hooks and like your walls right there. Because landing your hook in like the jungle and support wall especially makes or breaks this chaotic performance. But other than that, he's still very a great initiator tank, can also self-heal super well, but I think in terms of like reliability and consistency, I don't think he matches the ST heroes nearly as good as I like it to be. Next up is going to be Sereth, and she's going to be a B pick. Don't think there's anything wrong with going to the jungle. Her offline pick is not bad necessarily as well, but I think she has not as many options in those either those roles. Like I think as the closest comparison, she's kind of like the Fame Mal. Like both of them are kind of like the more carry, high damage kind of picks in offlane and jungle, but Fame Mal is a lot more safer and more consistent to play, whereas I feel like Sereth is very like 50-50 sometimes, especially when people start to invade you and there's literally nothing you can do at the Sereth if you get behind. So I think she's just a B kind of pick, nothing wrong with going with her, but she doesn't have nearly as much consistency or high threat consistently as these other heroes right here. Next up, it's gonna be Sidwalk. He's gonna be our last one trick kind of hero category. He's someone that it's kind of hard to sometimes play him in solo queue because sometimes games are literally over 20 minutes, and that's only right when you're starting to come online if you've been farming stacks well. Because the thing about playing Sidwalk is that like you can only like feel the really great strengths of him once you get the 4 stacks. And if you take too long to get 4 stacks, if you're taking like 30-35 minutes to get 4 stacks, you're really limiting your potential on Sedwall. Like he's a hero that you can get the 4 stack consistently between 20 and 25 minutes. That's kind of like benchmark. If you're not hitting 4 stacks between that benchmark, then you're losing a lot of potential on this pick. And at that point, it's almost better to go like a Steel or another tank that's a lot more consistent if you really care about meta kind of related stuff. I think it's fine still in the offlane jungle. Like in the right hands, he's like someone, he's always someone that's becomes like a semi-weight boss in the mid to late game, but at the same time, like his whole like playstyle and strength really relies on the player skill to be able to last hit and farm efficiently well, even when facing the really aggressive offlaners or tricky jungle situations. So for now, it's gonna be just in the one trick category. Champion's just going to be matchup dependent situational. I think she's not as popular in jungle at the moment compared to other junglers, so she's more like an offlaner, maybe sometimes mid lane, but she's her most popular pick at the moment is offlane, and she does have some decent matchups. Like she's one of the few matchups that's really good to Grux because Grux can never close the distance on Shimmy, while Shimmy can constantly keep harassing him from afar. At the same time though, I don't think Shinbi is like everyone's kind of cup of tea. I don't think she's someone that is like as reliable even, because she's very much like the Sevwalk where she very much wants to play for the whole scaling aspect. So if a game ends at like 20 minutes, then there's very little you can do. Like she requires patience and time from the team to really come online and become the split pushing menace that she can be. Like she definitely has those niche strengths, like she's very strong if she gets the scale and split push, but like I think for the whole, I think the really thing that holds her back is the fact that that's all she does really well. Like I feel like she doesn't have many options when it comes to team fighting like the other assassins do. So I feel like she's just someone that's always going to be more like a matchup dependent situational kind of character for now. Still, always an S-tier hero for a long time. I can remember, even when he's behind, he's still such a deadly threat in team fights because of his ability to just CC crowd control people for like 3 solid seconds with his AoE ultimate. Super annoying to deal with in lane. Like he's someone that can shut off some of the more aggressive matches like the Grux and Crunch super well for the most part. Even if he falls behind in terms of like damage, he can't 1v1 anymore. He's still like someone that's just unmatched in team fights, and he's a very good support for that reason as well. Next up is going to be Faye. She's also a matchup dependent situational character because she lives or dies by her ultimate. If people don't have cleanse and she can pull multiple people in, heck yeah, she's feeling super good. As soon as someone has the cleanse and you ult him and they cleanse it, you're a very sad fairy that you did absolutely nothing with your ultimate, and that's always why she's going to be in the categories. Like, she feels a little bit volatile for my liking when it comes to how people can counterplay her ultimate consistently. So I feel like she's a character that you want to be careful about picking, especially since that she's one of the easier mid to camp and just kill over and over due to a very low mobility options. Dreamblast A picks overall, nothing can go wrong with him. I like his favorite like the Murdoch situation where like him and Murdoch are like very strong, very self-efficient and really great in solo kill environments, but they're sort of slightly overshadowed by jungle at the moment. Like, I really think that Chumas, like, you can almost argue to still put him S tier because he has like that really annoying build with the Infernum and Mind Racer, just spamming builds from afar and having the kill threat to kill people super far away that no ADC can match that range besides maybe a Grim on the magical base build. But I think for the most part, you can always pick up Trimbus and nothing can go wrong with it, but just know that compared to Drongo, I think Drongo just provides a bit more that team utility and impact in those team fights than that Trimbus can. Last but not least, it's going to be Sirius, and he is going to be our A pick right here. It's always kind of hard because I almost want to put him S tier because he is just someone that has like probably one of the best matchups in terms of offlane in the game. Like, he has very little like counter matchups for the most part. He's also someone that is one of the few matchups that can go super well into the Kwang, who's the S tier pick at the moment, but I just don't think he quite reaches the S2 rank. Like, he's kind of like the Victor. He's not like a super straightforward character to pick up and play. He's someone that's very more on the meticulous side. Like, this is a character that you can only find a lot of great value from if you're someone that like been playing the game for a while and you know the matchups super well and know how to best like drive your pressure in lane. So I think he's definitely really solid A pick overall. I think it's also for the fact that Sirius is someone that doesn't have as many options, I almost feel like, too, compared to his other heroes. Well, he almost wanted to like start to rotate and try to go for picks for the most part, but at the same time, though, when it comes to like busting down picks by yourself on this hero, I don't think he does nearly as good as some of these other heroes. So I think he's definitely a pick. I don't think he's quite yet at the S tier pick, especially since I think other heroes like the Kwang and Steel are just a bit more consistent and are able to provide a lot more that team value, I think, than Sirius at the moment. But yeah, that's my tier list for version 0.17. So I really appreciate the support and I hope this video was super helpful for you guys. Again, this is just my opinions at the end of the day, so don't take this tier list too seriously. You can definitely argue for some heroes to go move around, but this is my kind of best unbiased informative opinion on kind of like where the meta is at right now for version 0.17. And so at the very least, I think this video right here is going to be super informative and super helpful for those who are trying to really like understand like what heroes are really good at the moment and what heroes can sometimes be more challenging to use. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you're not already, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single beat by yours truly. But other than that, we really appreciate the love and support as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.